My name is Cheryl Erickson, and I'm the Indigenous focused ECE instructor with Louis Riel Vocational College. Today in Chapter 4 of Guidance, we're going to explore creating environments that prevent discipline problems. But before we get started, just a reminder to please read Chapter 4, as this video isn't a replacement for your chapter readings. So when we look at environments for young children, we need to consider the ages of the child in order to make it an appropriate environment. If the environment is appropriate, it's going to set a child up for success, therefore limiting any behavioral problems or any safety concerns. So when we look at an environment that's supportive for an infant or a baby, we need to consider the space. The space is going to be important because it is going to allow a baby to successfully move around and explore the environment. We know that exploration of the environment for babies is how they learn and how they move through the different developmental processes to end up walking in the end. So their environment should have soft flooring, it should have structures that are safe for them to pull themselves up to standing, and for them to successfully move around. You should have caring and nurturing ECEs available for the infants to respond to their needs as well. And so one of the biggest issues in infant environments is safety, so it needs to be safe for them. Toddlers love to cruise, so again, a good space for toddlers allows for lots of mobility, clear pathways for them to move around. Of course, you're going to have shelving structures to house the toys, so there should be a clear path that teaches children how to get from one area to the next. You should have climbing structures for children to climb, balance beams, mats, items like that for teaching, for an outlet of physical development as well as teaches independence. And also available staff there that are going to support the development of these toddlers and help them with skills of expressing language and guide them for inappropriate behaviors. When we look at preschool and kindergarten, again, a space should house 7 curriculum areas for preschool. There should be a wide variety of creative materials for children to utilize. They should have space to have some physical outlets, so moving their body, whether it's jumping, climbing, running. Allows for free choice and opportunities that we provide them for developing friendships. So those key times where we come together as a group in circles, meal times, different activities that are put out that really can kind of enforce some social skills and where children develop friendships. As children move on into school, what should a school environment look like? Again, you're going to have your set curriculum that is going to be required in your daily teachings, but a good solid routine that allows for those physical outlets so the child can reset and be successful in their learning outcomes. So again, looking at the individual needs of the child, because not all children will fit within that routine, and you might have to individualize it. There should be some choices for the children as well. Free time, comfortable chairs to sit on, things that are going to promote learning and growing. Why is that physical environment important? A well-organized classroom is going to promote those positive interactions with the children. Again, so a well-designed classroom is going to be looking at the types of space that you're utilizing, what the materials are that you're utilizing. You should have areas in your environment that encourage group interactions, those social types of elements, as well as the solitary when children need time just to be alone. Poorly designed spaces are going to cause inappropriate behaviors as well. So your space really needs to look at meeting the needs of the children. Creating a pro-social environment doesn't happen by chance. It's planned and prepared by teachers. So what kinds of activities that can you put out in your day when you consider your curriculum to really create that social type of atmosphere is going to be key for success. And we often talk about our environment as another teacher, or I often refer to it as the third teacher within that system. So a really well-designed setup program is going to almost act as a guide in itself and allow children to be more successful, because the materials provided to them within the environment are things that are of interest to the children. When you're designing your space, there's different things to consider and how you're going to set that environment up. And the first thing is a consideration of density. And here in Manitoba, each space is going to have a licensed number of children, and that's going to be based on how big that environment is. And so per square foot, the square footage decides how many children can be in that environment. And you have to consider things as well as the large structures like shelving, lockers. Those take away from child space. So your space is gonna has to consider those large items too. So your space overall really needs to benefit the children in the sense of, if it's too small of a space, is it going to allow opportunities for physical movement? If it's too large of a space, is that going to affect the learning process? High ceilings often cause loud noises, and that can affect how children are processing and learning as well. Not everybody can function in a loud environment. Your lights, natural lighting being the best source. So when you're licensed for a child care center, you have to have a certain portion of natural light in order for that license to be issued. So natural light is softer, it is natural. If your lighting is fluorescent lighting, sometimes that is hard on your eyes. You might consider things like removing one light from each fixture to make it a little bit softer, or having dimmers to make that light a little bit softer too. Your program should, have nice displays of things from home, pictures of families, colors, scenarios that are more warm, natural type of earth tones are highly promoted in the environment. Displays that have shelving that has bright colors and chairs that have bright colors often take away from the materials that are on them. And we really want to focus on the materials that are available for the children to use, because that does promote their learning and growth versus the units that they're housed in. We want to honor diversity, so including all families, all children, in the mix. And so how can we do that? Again, it could be coloring, family portraits, maps of the world, greetings in different languages, celebrations from different countries. So however you can incorporate that into your unique environment is going to be really beneficial for all the children, and feeling a part of the group and feeling welcoming. And that's really important for safety, security, and success in your learning. outcome. And a big factor in your environment is making it accessible for everybody. So your shelves should be low to the ground. Children should be able to just see things at eye level. And as far as children with disabilities, they might have a little bit difficult time getting around. Make shelves open so that they can easily access it, even from a wheelchair, so that they could even, have their wheelchair up against the shelf in close proximity so that they can remove something off the shelf. Items on the tops of the shelf aren't safe because they could get knocked over and fall onto the children that are maybe moving around on the ground. So things on the shelves are far safer than placing items on top of the shelf. High density crowded spaces, just a little bit more information about setting up your environment and what successful tips can be utilized from this. It does say that high density and crowded spaces can sometimes cause aggression as well and withdrawal of behavior. So we really want to promote positive outcomes within our environment. So that's another consideration. Noise and light influence how we feel and act. So we talked about that, more natural and soft lighting. How we set up our shelving too, things should always go back in the exact same space. So keeping it clear and clean, and items labeled with pictures that children can easily identify. So if they take a bin of Legos, the bin should have a picture of the Legos, as well as the shelf should have a picture of Legos, so that the children know the Lego goes into the bin and the bin goes back on the shelf. And to keep it, visually appealing, not cluttered. Again, cluttered can cause confusion, and children may tend to stay away from that. And clutter doesn't teach children how to care for things and teach them to be respectful to items in the environment too. And that's really important. We want children to care for the materials in our environment. As babies are growing and developing, they do need to explore. So keeping in mind that safety is the most important practice in that environment. Toddlers are very independent and they're learning through their senses. So a lot of sensory materials are really good for toddlers to utilize. And space for them to run, to throw a ball, to kick a ball. Water table, sand table, all those types of materials are really good and promote learning and growth in toddlers. Preschoolers like to pretend. So dramatic play is really important, and that's a really great way to promote social skills as well. So construction materials for building and a lot of different props, costumes, and materials. Loose parts is a fantastic place to be put in dramatic play, because it really allows the children to be creative in how they use those materials. And loose parts are really good in the art area as well, as far as creating masterpieces. And when we're looking at primary grades, can be especially challenging as well. And so when you look at primary grades, we need to consider the pies of development. And so when I say that, that's looking at the physical, intellectual, emotional, and social development. Pies is a term that's used. We also look at developing the whole child. Within our environment setup, and why we choose the materials that we choose to put in those 7 different curriculums. So we really need to look at individual children and set up that developmentally appropriate curriculum to set them up for success in their learning. Some different considerations as well, and we look at the different stages of play. For children who like to play in parallel play, which is playing with something by themselves, but in the proximity of other children, that's what we call parallel play. Or more social play where they're playing and interacting with other children, participating in maybe the same type of play, building a structure or having a tea party. We really need to consider that types of play within our environment, because we want to promote the type of play that child is in as part of their development. And so allowing for opportunities for independent, parallel, social play is really important, and offering play for pairs is really important too. So setting up learning lab or stations, listening stations where a couple of kids can listen to a story are really good. It encourages in a small group for independent manipulation, discussion, investigation, problem solving. There's some really good discovery that's going on there as well in a limited small group. So that's really important for development, as well as that space like your library area that's going to promote that independent, quiet, cozy space where if you need to be by yourself or want to just rest in a quiet area, that's available for a child if they choose to do so. So those areas are all really important for where we are developmentally. And when you're in a room that, if you're in a home setting and you want to be alone, children can just typically go into their room and play in their room. But when you're in a daycare environment, you really don't have that choice. You have to stay within that room to be supervised by the adults in care. So wherever you can offer those little nooks, if it's a blanket over a table to have a little quiet area or rest zone, take advantage of that, because those are really important for children. Everybody needs some downtime, needs time to rest. Group spaces as well. We need to offer small spaces for just a few children who might want to work with an adult or participate in a game or activity one-on-one with an adult or two children. Often we utilize these small group areas for children that have additional needs or supports. Their caregiver might take that child with a few children to work on goals, which is an activity related to trying to achieve a goal. So those spaces are really important within the environment as well. And also large group spaces for sharing circles or your story, your activity time, where a group of 8 children might come together with a caregiver to do an activity. So we want to offer all those activities to children, whether it's large or small. And having the space to do so is really important. What's the intellectual environment supposed to look like? So we want to promote an intellectual environment for our children. We want to give them as many opportunities as possible for learning and growing and being successful in life. We want to foster that development. So as much as we can, in the materials and curriculum areas that we're setting up for children, we want it to allow opportunities for curiosity and a desire to learn. And they should be able to freely choose what it is that they want to play with or who they want to play with. The other thing that we need to be aware of is when children are showing interest in something, and it could be an activity that happens outside. For example, this time of year in summer, children are often exploring the outdoor environment and finding a lot of different bugs or spiders and things like that. If they're interested in that concept, how can you promote further development? What can you do with your indoor environment to promote and expand on that curiosity? And maybe it's by setting up a science area that puts out magnifying glasses and books about bugs and pictures about bugs. For children to further exploration, maybe you put a laptop in the area and you can help children Google different bugs to look at and make some comparisons. So where there are opportunities to do that, do so, because it is really going to promote further understanding about things that children are interested in. Again, we want those materials to stimulate thinking for the children, and so really add to the environment. The children can't play with the same things over and over again. You're going to want to expand on what's there. You're going to want to rotate your toys and materials. You're going to want to make new purchases based on things that the children are talking about or things that are interested in. The materials that you're going to put out into your environment should be age appropriate. And in a lot of preschool programs, it's a mixed age of 2 to 5. So you're going to have a wide variety of toys and materials that meet the developmental needs of those children. When materials are mismatched, it is a cause for more behavioral issues, because children become frustrated. They don't know how to use the materials appropriately. It's too hard, it's too difficult. And then you could have the opposite, where it's just not challenging enough. They're bored with it, and because they're bored, they're looking for things to do, and sometimes that is things that could get them into trouble. So we want to put in more open-ended, and again, that's where I speak often of loose parts, because loose parts could be anything. It really makes children think and be creative, and so loose parts often sparks a lot of conversation, a lot of experimentation. And we want to promote that, as well as risk taking on a limited. You're going to have rules around what your risk taking is. So, risk taking could be your balance beam, creating a balance beam, and children are utilizing different types of blocks. And what happens if I try to balance on this? Maybe I could fall, or maybe I'll be successful at crossing it. But overall it's safe because it's very low to the ground. So that would be the types of risks that you take within an environment. Or if putting out more realistic materials within your dramatic play center, like real dishes, is something that we're doing because it's real life. What happens if a glass dish hits the floor? It's going to break, and while that's okay, because we'll clean it up. We'll teach the children how to clean up glass safely. So those things that really promote a lot of logical types of thinking and are realistic. And I really like to use more natural household items too, because it really teaches children how to care for things. And it's really important that they learn the value, that they like these types of materials, because if they like them and they appreciate them, they do tend to take care of them. And it works great for home too, because they're learning about those types of materials, and they get to use them in the home environment too. Emotional environment. There's a lot of positive that comes out of the emotional environment. It can promote children in their self-esteem. We want to look at our emotional environment as teaching children self-control, self-regulation, and they're going to learn to master that. Within as they learn and grow, they master identity. Master identity in that who they are, that good self-concept, as well as what I can do, and I'm successful at doing this. And we want it to be positive, because if they're feeling badly about things that they can and cannot do, or feeling bad about themselves, it can affect their behavior. And we don't want them to react negatively to situations. So, building children up is really good. Learning through experiences is really good. And remembering that it's not within experiences or choices that children are making, it's not them that's bad, it's just the choice that they're making. How can we help children in our environment, in the preschool environment, which is very much a social environment, and social skills are really are really important. Little things like respecting relationships are really important. So respectful relationships and showing children respect and being respectful to children, role modeling that behavior is really important. And children are going to be respectful to you as well. Just being positive as well, especially when it comes to the infants and recognizing their cues, because therefore we're meeting their needs. And we're developing good relationships, and they will develop trust in us, and that's really going to be important to their overall growth and development. We really want to avoid a lot of competition, because that does tend to set children up or somebody up for failure when there always has to be a winner or a loser in a situation. Play more productive games where children just are having fun and are happy within that process, opposed to focusing on somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. Recognizing that everybody is good at something and providing that appropriate recognition is really important. And we should be praising children for things that they're doing throughout the day. No matter what, in a day, there's always a lot of positive things that you can see. Whether you did a great job packing up your lunch bag today. Things like that. And it's focusing on a specific task, that's something that they did. It was concrete, and opposed to just a random good job, because they don't know maybe why it is you're saying good job, but you're making it more specific. Social skills is something that children don't automatically have. It's something they learn. Everybody learns how to where they or how to fit into social situations, or what to do within social situations. So it's a ongoing process. A lot of it's learned through role modeling. A lot of it's learned when we're teaching children how to enter those play situations. We learn it through experiences. There's no manual that teaches us how to be social. Some children it comes to more naturally than others, and just recognizing those children that need to have a little bit more guidance and help within that is really going to be important in helping them be successful. And that kind of goes with making friendships as well. Our classrooms should support making friendships. Children typically find things in common with other children, and that's where friendships start. But in the daycare center, just promoting we're all friends here as well. Adults can be friends with children, and I've used that scenario with children in discussions as well. And if asked why I might be doing something, it's because I want to. They're my friend, and we do good things. We do nice things for our friends. So just sharing those little stories about that. We want the daycare to be a happy place where everybody feels welcome and everybody feels good about the environment. So little things like sharing, taking turns, being invited into play, all of those are positive play experiences, and to really make sure that those experiences are positive, and if there's things that are going on in those play situations that are negative, to really get in there and guide children and talk, that perspective taking if they're at that stage of development where you can kind of nip that and move on to more positive scenarios, especially when you get into those triad play. Typically kids play well in twos and fours. Children don't play well in a group of three because somebody's left out. So a lot of times when it's groups of three, an adult really needs to be in there and guiding that play in a positive environment. And even sometimes inviting a fourth person in is helpful in that play situation. Mutual respect is really important. And again, really getting to know your children, being kind to your children, listening to the children in care with you, getting to know a little bit about them and their families is going to help them be a little bit more comfortable. Role modeling respectful behavior, and in turn that will come back and children will start to talk and share with you and be respectful. So it's do unto others. Listening is a really important part of developing respect with children. Are children allowed to choose what to do and with whom to play, who they want to play with? You know, absolutely, in a respectful way. Some children are just connected and play well together, and that's great. Again, that's kind of where that third child comes in, is often where conflict starts. So, you know, being mindful as well that if two children are really playing well together and it's going great, and often when the third person joins, that problems will start. How do we kind of troubleshoot that? How can we nip that? Maybe that child needs a friend too of their own. Is there somebody that we can, in the environment that they might connect to? What can we do to make this a positive play experience? So we do want to respect that children are playing well, and when the third person comes in, that it just kind of ruins that play. We want to allow them that opportunity to play. So maybe sometimes we're going to have to be the play partner for that third child, or work some type of situation out that it's positive. Knowing the child's culture and their family, that they're a unique individual, is really important in developing that mutual respect as well. And just, I can't express enough this last point on the slide of children do not develop respect for others unless they are respected. And I think as adults, we can relate to that too. Do you necessarily have respect for somebody that is disrespectful to you? And the answer is probably no. So that does conclude Chapter 4 in creating environments in guidance. Please do ask your instructor if you need further clarification on anything we discussed here today, as well as just check in to ensure that you haven't missed any handouts or assignments pertaining to this chapter.